If you could go back in time, what would you say to yourself? That question has visited you in silence, maybe on a quiet evening, flipping through old photos. Or on a random Sunday, watching your grandchildren play where your own children once grew up. We all have words left unspoken, phrases we never said, truths that only time could teach us. But what if you could still use that wisdom not to change the past, but to transform the present? This video is a letter you may have never received, but that arrived right on time. Here, I'll share the 10 things I'd say if I could go back in time. Each one comes from falls that turned into lessons, from losses that taught more than books ever could. And from silences that screamed at me. If you feel like you've lived a lot, but still have so much to understand, then this video is for you. Stay with me until the end, because one of these phrases might be exactly what your heart needed to hear, and maybe, for the first time in a long time, you'll forgive yourself, or even find yourself again. You don't have to be strong all the time. At 17, I thought crying was weakness, that admitting pain was like signing a defeat certificate. I clearly remember hearing phrases like, "Suck it up," "Men don't cry," or even, "Be strong, you can handle it," and I did. I endured in silence, endured alone, endured until I almost forgot what it felt like to be light. But the price of that strength was high. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't try to teach math, wouldn't try to fix mistakes or give ready-made advice. I'd just look into that boy's eyes, that young man terrified inside, but proud on the outside, and calmly say, "You don't have to carry everything alone. The truth is, life is already heavy enough. It demands from us in silence. And pretending everything's fine all the time only adds to the burden, only pushes people away, only teaches us to lie to ourselves. Pain, when not shared, becomes a dark secret, a weight no one sees, but that eats away inside. And you know what else? I learned too late that asking for help doesn't make us smaller. On the contrary, asking for help is an act of courage. It's like telling the world, "I'm human, and it's okay not to be okay." For many years, I wore the armor of strength, smiled when I wanted to cry, stood tall when my body just wanted to sit and breathe, stayed silent when my soul screamed for help. I became an expert at seeming fine even when my world was falling apart. And all for what? Because I was taught that showing emotion was weakness, that being vulnerable was dangerous, that it was better to endure everything alone than risk looking fragile in front of others. But today, with the gray hair time gave me and the peace that only comes after many falls, I know the truth. Holding on to pain is like trying to contain the ocean in a cup. Sooner or later, it overflows. Sometimes it leaks as anger, other times as deep sadness. Sometimes it shows up in the body as illness, insomnia, exhaustion that won't fade. Because everything the soul feels but the mouth won't say, the body screams. And it screams loud. How many people in our generation spent their whole lives trying to be too strong? How many women held families together alone? How many men hid tears in the bathroom? How many of us were raised to resist when what we really needed was comfort? True strength isn't about never falling. It's about knowing when it's time to rest, recognizing your own limits, being able to say, "I need a hug, I need to talk, I just need to be heard." And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing. The world may have taught us that feeling is weakness, but feeling is living, and truly living takes courage. The courage to show up whole, with your pain, your doubts, your fears, and still keep going. If today you feel like you're holding on too tight, like you're trying to be the pillar for everything and everyone, I want to tell you something maybe no one has ever said. You have the right to rest, to be held, to be cared for. Because at some point in life, we all need someone. We all deserve a shoulder. And we all have the right to let go of the weight, even if just for a moment. Being strong all the time isn't heroism. It's exhaustion. And no one was made to live exhausted. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't tell myself to hang in there. I'd say, let yourself be human. Because in the end, that's all we are. And that's enough. Rush will steal things from you that never come back. If I could go back in time, one of the first things I'd do is slow down, just like that. Walk more leisurely down the street, without checking the time, without thinking about the next appointment. Because back then, I thought living meant running, that life was a finish line and whoever stopped, lost. But now I know, and I know it with every line on my face, that rush stole things from me that will never return. How many times did I fail to truly listen to someone because I was in a hurry? How many times did I say, I'll talk to him later. I'll call later. We'll catch up later. That later never came. Rush made me miss simple gestures. A conversation on the porch with my mom. The look in my dad's eyes during Sunday lunch. The story my son wanted to tell me when I said, I was too busy. The truth is, life doesn't warn you when a moment will be the last. And by the time you realize it, it's already a memory. And memories don't hug back. In my youth, I believed I needed to get there. Achieve, accomplish, prove myself. Climb the ladder, but no one told me where there was. And more importantly, no one warned me that in that frantic race, I'd leave parts of myself behind. Friends I never saw again. Letters I never answered. Kisses I never gave. Meals I rushed through. Silences I didn't honor. All because I was in a hurry. And you know what's funny? Now that time has passed, I realize those moments I thought were small were actually the most important. Because they're what give meaning to the journey, the lingering hug, the hot coffee on a cold morning, the smell of grandma's cake, the sound of rain when you're safe at home. It's these little pauses that warm the soul. But rush doesn't allow pauses. Rush tramples over tenderness. It turns everything into a task, a goal, an obligation. Today, when I look back, I don't regret not making more money or not buying that car. I regret what I didn't feel, what I didn't experience with presence, what I did on autopilot while my mind was in the future and my body just went through the motions. Rush pulled me away from the now, and the now is all we have. If I could go back, I'd tell my younger self, look around. See the wrinkles on your grandma's face when she smiles. Smell the food made with love. Listen, really listen, when someone says, I need to talk. Because this, my child, doesn't come back. Life doesn't have a replay button, and don't fool yourself. It's not just time that passes. We pass with a dot, and if we're not present, we didn't live. We just existed. And existing isn't enough for the soul. So today, I do everything slower. Not because I'm older, but because I've learned that rush took me away from what truly mattered. And now, with the time I have left, I don't want to run. I want to feel. I want to see. I want to be here. Because in the end, what we want most is time. Time to go back, to relive, to do things differently. But time is a silent teacher. It doesn't turn back. It only moves forward. So if you're still running, stop. Even if just for a moment. Look around. Breathe. Live this now as if it were the only one, because it is. Not everything that breaks you destroys you. There are moments in life that break you. Moments that take away your ground, your direction, your faith in everything. A loss, a betrayal, a word that cuts deeper than any blow. And in that moment, it feels like nothing will ever get better. Like what's broken inside will never be whole again. But if I could go back in time, I'd tell myself with a firm and steady voice, not everything that breaks you destroys you. Sometimes it's just the start of your rebuilding. Pain doesn't ask for permission. It invades, spreads, knocks down what seemed solid, and what follows is a strange silence, as if the world has stopped. But only for you And in that silence, you believe it's over, that there's no way back. But with time and time teaches, even when we don't want to learn, we realize some cracks aren't the end. They're invitations. Invitations to look inward and ask, who am I now after this? I remember when I lost someone who meant everything to me. I thought I'd never smile again. But I learned grief doesn't disappear. It changes shape. And with time, instead of pain, it becomes longing. And longing becomes fond memory. And memory becomes strength. The truth is, we only discover what we're made of when we break, when life takes control from our hands and forces us to learn how to live differently. And then, after a while, and it's never quick, we realize that fall made us more aware. More sensitive. More alive. How many times has a loss made you cherish those still by your side? How many times has disappointment taught you to set boundaries? How many times has an ending made space for something new to begin? We grow far more in the dark than in the light. And pain, as cruel as it seems, sometimes comes to show you that you were settling for less, that you were holding on to something that no longer made sense, that you'd forgotten yourself. If I could go back, I'd say, trust me. This pain has meaning, even if it doesn't seem like it now. It won't last forever. And that's not just a saying. It's experience. No storm lasts eternally. And when the sky clears, you realize you've learned to walk in the rain. Today, looking back, I see the hardest moments of my life were also the most transformative, because they're at rock bottom. There was no more pretending. No more running from myself. And it was there, broken, that I found myself again. No masks. No pressure. Just me. And the choice to rebuild. And rebuilding isn't about going back to who you were. It's being born again. With the cracks, with the scars, but also with a new awareness that you survived, that you were stronger than you thought, that you can start over. Not everything that breaks you destroys you. Sometimes it reveals you, shapes you, brings you closer to your best self. So if today you're going through one of those moments that feels impossible, breathe. It's not the end. It's the start of something you don't understand yet. But one day, you'll be grateful you went through it. You'll regret what you didn't do more. If there's one thing time teaches, even when we don't ask, it's that the deepest regret doesn't come from what we did wrong. It comes from what we didn't do. The kiss we didn't give, the letter we never wrote. The "I love you" we swallowed out of pride. The trips we postponed, the dances we turned down, the hugs we saved for tomorrow. If I could go back in time, I'd look myself in the eye and say firmly, you'll regret what you didn't do, far more than the mistakes you made trying to live. Because time is treacherous. It tricks us into thinking there will always be another chance. Another Sunday, another birthday, another meeting. And so we keep pushing life forward, as if it would wait for us. But life doesn't wait. It happens. And then it's gone. I remember so many opportunities I let slip out of fear of exposing myself, of failing, of being rejected, of looking foolish. How many times did I stay silent when I should have spoken? How many times did I say later? And later never came? Those small surrenders added up, became a hole in my chest. An emptiness of unlived possibilities. And no, I'm not saying to live without thinking, but to live truthfully. With presence, with the courage to say what you feel, even if your voice shakes. Because in the end, it's not the fall that hurts. It's the what if. What if I had tried? What if I had called? What if I had said what I truly felt? Time doesn't answer those questions. It just moves on and leaves you with silence. And it's in that silence that so many of us live now in old age, looking back, realizing youth wasn't just about mistakes, but about silences that lasted too long. I've learned that living is a risk, loving is a risk, speaking is a risk, but not living? That's a waste, because while fear protects, it also imprisons. and the walls we build to shield ourselves. Also, shut out the best parts of life. If I could go back, I would have danced more even if I couldn't dance. I would have said, "I love you," without waiting for the other person to say it first. I would have taken that trip, even with little money. Would have let myself make mistakes and laughed at them. And you know what hurts the most? Realizing that what we saved for later doesn't come back. That person you thought would always be there one day is gone. That chance that seemed guaranteed slips away, and all that's left is regret. And regret is a kind of pain that doesn't scream, but never quiets. So if you're facing that dilemma today, if you're putting something off out of fear, insecurity, or habit, listen closely to what I'm about to say. Go ahead, even if you're scared. Go trembling, go imperfect, go without certainty, but go. Because the risk of doing is great, but the weight of not doing is immense. And one day, when you're older, even older than you are now, you won't remember the safe moments clearly, but you will remember the courage you had at the right times. And that memory will warm you from within. Don't live a life of what if. Live a life of stories, of attempts, of real emotion. Because even mistakes, when lived with heart, turn into wisdom. But holding back only leaves emptiness. Learn to listen to silence. Silence was always there, but I only started hearing it when the noise of the world stopped making sense. For years, I filled my days with sounds, voices, appointments, buzzing devices, loud music, rushed conversations. I was afraid of silence because it brought everything I tried to avoid, the questions I didn't want to face, the pain I pretended not to feel, the dreams I buried for lack of courage. But if I could go back in time, I'd take myself to a quiet place. No distractions, no rush, no masks. And say, learn to listen to silence. That's where your truth lives. Silence isn't the absence of sound. It's pure presence. It's when the soul has room to speak. It's when the mind stops racing and finally begins to see. Noise protects. Use. It distracts us. It makes us believe we're alive just because we're busy. But it's in silence that we hear ourselves. And often, we don't like what we hear, because silence shows us the longing, the regret, the emptiness, the fear, but it also reveals our essence, what we've lost along the way. How often have you let yourself be silent? No phone, number TV, no filling the space with anything? How often have you just stopped and listened to the sound of your own heart? At first, it may unsettle you. It feels strange, but with time, silence becomes refuge. It becomes home, a safe place where you find yourself again. I remember when the house grew empty, when the kids moved out and obligations faded. Silence became part of my routine, and at first, it frightened me. I felt a loneliness I couldn't name, but then I understood. I understood I needed that emptiness to hear myself again, to remember who I was before I became everything to everyone else. Silence is a conversation with God. With time, with everything that has no voice but has presence. It's in silence that grief finds peace. It's in silence that forgiveness takes shape. It's in silence that choices start to make sense. Youth values noise, but maturity teaches us to value the pause. And now, if you ask me where the answers I spent years searching for are, they're not in books or advice or ready-made quotes. They're in the silence I learned to respect. If you feel lost, unsure of what you feel, or without direction, before searching outside, close your eyes. Breathe. And listen. The answer might already be there, waiting for you to stop running and just hear. Don't be afraid of silence. It doesn't swallow you. It reveals you. And the closer you get to it, the closer you get to who you truly are. If I could go back, I would have silenced myself more. I would have listened to my intuition, my body, my heart. I would have stopped following just what others expected of me and started following what resonated here inside. Silence is the sound of the soul, and only those who learn to hear it live in peace. People aren't eternal, but gestures are. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't bring expensive gifts. I wouldn't try to impress with pretty words. The only thing I'd do is look into the eyes of those I loved and say, I'm here, and I'm grateful you exist. Because now I understand. People pass, but gestures remain. They linger like perfume in the air, like marks on a wooden bench that no longer shines, but carries history. Like that hug you can almost feel again, just by remembering. I remember when my mother would call me to talk, unhurried, and I'd respond with short answers, eager to get back to what I thought was more urgent. She just wanted to know how I was. And I was too busy to realize that time together was a gift. Today, I'd give anything for 5 more minutes in that kitchen. We wouldn't even need to talk. I just want to see her eyes shining as she chopped onions and told me about life. We think there will always be another day. Another. See you later. Another cup of coffee. But life, that unpredictable lady, never warns us when it's the last time. The people I loved most left quietly, some without goodbyes. Others with rushed words. But all of them left something in me. It wasn't the dates that stayed, or the gifts they gave. It was the gestures. The care, the presence, the attentive eyes, the hand that squeezed mine at just the right moment. You know, with time you realize you don't need grand declarations. You just need to be there, truly. There, with your whole heart, with active listening, with sincere touch. Some people passed through my life like a breeze, but left warmth that lasts to this day. Some stayed briefly, but left a deeper mark than those who were there for years. Because what connects us isn't time. It's the quality of the gesture. It's the look that says, I understand you. It's the shared silence without discomfort. It's the simple, I came to see you, that changes someone's day. And now, in my later years, when the pace slows and the body asks for rest, that's when memory starts working differently. It doesn't bring back street names or bank passwords clearly, but it brings back the smell of childhood meals, the sound of an old friend's laughter, and the warmth of a hand that held me when everything seemed dark. It's in these moments you understand. None of this ever dies, because gestures transcend time. And make us eternal inside someone else. If I could go back, I would have complimented more. I would have hugged without hesitation, would have written simple notes. I would have stopped to listen without checking the clock. I would have said more often, you matter to me. Because when these words go unspoken, their silence weighs forever. You listening to me now. Maybe still have time to show up. To be light in someone's life. To leave a simple gesture that will bloom even when you're no longer around. People aren't eternal, but gestures, gestures are. And they're what write the real story of our lives. If I could go back in time, maybe I wouldn't change the mistakes or try to be perfect, but I would have been kinder to myself. I would have loved more, listened more, lived with more calm. I would have said what needed to be said before it was too late. And above all, I would have lived with a more open heart. But you know, maybe I don't need to go back, and maybe you don't either. Because the greatest truth is this: there's still time. Time to care for what matters. Time to forgive those who left and those who stayed. Time to write new pages with more truth, less rush, and more soul. Life in the end is made of moments we either live or let pass. And if you've made it this far with me, it's because you have this desire inside to look back with peace and forward with purpose. So don't leave now. Don't disconnect from this message as if it were just another video. Do something with it. Send it to someone who needs to hear this. Talk to that person you've been putting off. Write, call, forgive, start again. And if these words touched your heart, I invite you to stay close. Here, on this channel, we don't speak just to entertain. We speak to heal, to comfort, to remind you that it's never too late to live with meaning. Subscribe. Because the next story might be the one that changes your tomorrow. Or maybe it'll help you rediscover something that's been asleep inside you. And if you've made it this far, you're already ready to live with more lightness, more presence. And more truth. You're not alone. You never were.